Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. Friday, April 3rd. As of today, we have 71 positive COVID cases in Lincoln and Minnehaha County. We have 13 of those that are recovered. We'll be announcing, obviously, more positive cases today. I want to share a reality that I think is important to just continue to reinforce through this process, and that is the fact that our cases will continue to grow every day, and they will continue to grow and continue to grow for the weeks and potentially possibly even months or more ahead. They will grow. What we obviously are focused on, as we've said constantly, is not stopping COVID, it's flattening when we see those cases. You know, it's been estimated that 30% of our state or more may get COVID. That's 250,000 plus South Dakotans who will have COVID. Many of those being asymptomatic, may not even show signs, but a lot of those will also need additional care, hospitalization, and so the caseload is going to grow. And I just want to be very realistic on that. As we see our cases go from 70 to 90 to 125 to 250, we know that's going to happen, and we're preparing for that. The governor has said this, and I want to reinforce her message, and that is the steps we're taking and doing right now have to be realistically sustainable. Okay, well, what do we mean by that? Well, you have certain cards you can play at certain times in this process to try and flatten the curve. You can't have a stay-at-home order for 4 or 5 months. It's not sustainable, it's not realistic, it wouldn't work. So we as a state, and specifically, I'm looking at Lincoln and Minnehaha County, when is the right time to trigger those different tools to have the maximum efficacy on flattening the curve in our area based on what we're seeing. You can, despite what a lot of people will maybe say to the contrary, you can do too much too soon. And please don't interpret that as the mayor has his head in the sand. Absolutely not. But there's a timing and a strategy to the steps we're taking in the city of Sioux Falls right now. Yesterday, we had data modeling presented to us, and for the first time, I will say in this process, I got confident, accurate, and verifiable data from multiple sources that says, based on the steps we're taking for mitigation, this is the impact. If we do something 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, here's what we can expect to see with the curves. We have plans that we're following in the city. We have strategies. We have different levels of action. And so it's important for people to know that it's not just a knee-jerk response to how we're responding. These are very thought-out, deliberate actions on when we're pulling the right triggers to respond in the city of Sioux Falls. One of the talking points right now is shelter in place, stay at home, safer at home. Those are 3 terms used. All of them mean different things. Shelter in place, stay at home, and safer at home. A lot of folks are encouraging or calling for a shelter in place or a stay at home order right now. I want you to know that there's 3, we're kind of using what we call the 3 R's to this process right now. You know, every day we're reviewing what's happened in the last 24 hours. In fact, what's happened in the last 5 hours. In fact, we had a meeting at 8:30 this morning, and based on a text I just got an hour ago, that's even changed based on what I thought and some more information we got. That's literally how fluid things are happening right now. So we review that. Then we reassess our actions that we've taken or not taken today, and then we realign our priorities in those initiatives based on how we need to respond with the most recent data we have. So we review, reassess, we're realigning that constantly. You know, regarding a shelter-in-place order at a local level, okay, we're one of probably about a dozen maybe states in the country that don't have a shelter-in-place order as a state. So we're looking at, okay, what does that look like at a local level? So my staff and I were looking into that possibility for sure. But given the impact that that would have on health and welfare of our citizens, our businesses, you need to be serious and intentional, not only about what that looks like, but when you flip that switch. okay? When the right time to do that is to flatten the curve. So I don't have my normal chart in here, but you know the flatten the curve chart. If you put a shelter in place order now, you just push that peak down the road, and then the peak still happens, okay? You bottle up all those people, and when it's relaxed, it happens. So we're slowly, honestly, seeing people contract COVID to flatten this curve. That's what's happening right now, and that's what you're seeing. Shelter in place is in a lot of communities and states. It's one of their last resorts. It's one of the last steps that they're taking. Having conversations with the governor on that step as well, if and when it may happen at the state. But I can tell you at the city level, we're absolutely looking at a new shelter in place and what that would look like in the city of Sioux Falls and when we trigger that. Now again, the civics lesson of the day is this. To do that, we have to notice a meeting that we're going to talk about this. 24 hours later, we can have a meeting. We can have a first reading on that. And 5 days later, we can have a second reading and a vote. That's a 6-day window to do something like this. That's the law. That's the constraints that we live in these times. Again, the legislator had a chance to remove that and allow us to do things right away in first reading. They chose not to give us that authority. So we live in 6-day windows right now when, as I just shared with you, things change hour to hour, literally. So you can see how hard it is to manage the response within those parameters. And we're doing all we can to execute this plan and many of our plans within that framework. So what's the economic impact of all this? I'm going to play this video, and I'm going to hit play here somewhere. This video is important to know what the impact is with social distancing, economy shutdowns in our economy. And what you're looking at right now is the jobless claims over the last 50 years in our country. And you can see when recessions happen, you can see when different events happen, and you can see what's happened in the last month, where we have skyrocketed 6.6 million jobless claims this month. And I can tell you that this line here represents a whole new set of challenges we're dealing with in this city, and not just in Sioux Falls, across the country. Homelessness, mental health, food security, evictions, all a whole nother set of public health hysteria almost that we're dealing with in this level. Do I say this to say, well, Paul, what's a life worth? Okay, well, you're showing that, you're saying that the economy is more important than a public health response? No, I'm not. But in this line, there's a lot of lives, and there's a lot of public health that has to be dealt with as well. So that is the dichotomy of this issue, and that's what we're dealing with right now, is public health COVID, the economy and public health related to that, and we're walking this line right here, trying to do both. It's hard. It's a hard line to walk. But I think that's a very important chart to drive home that challenge. I'll tell you that our social distancing in Sioux Falls is working. I got a report of our traffic counts in our city. Traffic overall is down more than 30%. Okay? We have ways to measure traffic volumes on some of our major arterials and streets in the city. Down 30%. It's good. Wish it was a little more. I think we'll continue to see more. But people are listening. For that, I want to thank the citizens and the residents of the city who are listening to that and who are practicing good social distancing. There's a lot of websites out there that are crowdsourcing data and are using open source data, open APIs to gather data and share cell phone GPS information, coordinates. Are people actually staying in homes? Are they moving around their city? One of the more trusted ones gave Minnehaha County an F as of about 4 days ago. Continued reinforcement of this message. We've moved up to a C now, which is good. But I know when my kids bring home a C, I'm not happy, and I want an A. And so we're going to keep preaching that message of social distancing. And again, like I said, looking at what the next steps are in our plan as we see the uptick of the curve just beginning in our city. Tomorrow, because I have no meetings or events to go to anymore on the weekends, I'm actually going to go to 4 or 5 kids' houses and surprise them, Publishers Clearinghouse style, for the great work they did with the art they put in their windows. Really, that's been just a home run for our kids who have the cabin fever going on. So I can't wait to do that tomorrow. If you want to join me along on that, I'll sure would welcome you. Last two things I want to say. First, I want to say a note on civility. I would continue to, just like I'm talking a lot about social distancing, I want to reinforce the importance of civility in our dialogue during this time. And I want to specifically lift up our governor, who is in an incredibly challenging role. And I watch her press conferences, and I lean on her words and how she's leading our state. And some of the ways that people interact with their elected officials is embarrassing. It's disrespectful. It's not productive. We're in this together. It doesn't do any good to do name calling or armchair quarterbacking or questioning what someone's wearing in a press. I mean, it's ridiculous. We need civility. We don't do that in Sioux Falls. We're better than that. We're better than that in the state. And so I would ask that you don't point out problems, look for solutions, okay? Be positive. Positivity will get us through this. And so civility is really important in times like this, especially when issues are somewhat divisive and everyone has a different idea on what a successful mitigation response looks like. Finally, call to action today, we need blood. We need people to donate blood in this city. Healthcare system specifically reached out, the blood bank reached out and said, listen, we rely on a steady supply of donors and they're not showing up. And they're getting to some dangerous levels. So if you would like to help, I would ask you to go consider donating blood. If you feel comfortable going out and doing that, please do that. I may do that this afternoon at both Avera and Sanford, as well as the Blood Mobile. So please take time to do that. With that, I'm going to open up any questions you may have for me today.
Two questions. First, what is that trigger point for a shelter in place from a city standpoint?
So a few things on that. So, and I'm not going to share this publicly. Mike's going to try and zoom in on it and get the details, so I'm going to shake it around like this. But there's different levels of response that we take. And one of the things we've looked at, and other cities looked at, is when their case counts hit certain levels. What Sanford and Avera have said is, hey, when we get to a certain number of people in beds in our facilities that have COVID, that triggers the next step. And when we hit this metric in our hospitals, that is what triggers the next step. And they're using that data based on how other municipalities and other cities, what they've seen. So that's the data that we're looking at. I will say we're really close right now to looking at what I would call a safer at home order. Safer at home would be an executive order that I could put out. Wouldn't be legally enforceable, but it would give some very firm parameters on what I expect our residents to adhere to. Single person going to a store, things like that. So we'd start to put some more rigid parameters in place. That's what a safer at home ordinance would be. So there's a lot of different data points we use. Those are a handful of what we're basing our recommendations on.
The other question, between where we are now with the no lingering ordinance and either safer at home or that next step, the shelter in place, what are some of the, I guess, intermediary steps in between that you guys are evaluating?
Sure. Yeah. So the question is, based on what we've done today and full city lockdown, what are the interstitials that you can live with in there? And we have our parks are still open. Playground equipment isn't, but parks are still open. People are still gathering there. We may have to close our parks at some point. Honestly, the grocery stores and the big box stores, there's too many people in them. So do we have to start limiting the occupancy there based on a percentage of their fire code capacity and putting an ordinance in place that only allows, let's say, 10% of their max occupancy to be in that store at any one time? Because that's where it seems like those are starting to be the pinch points. So you can put in ordinances or policies that just sound good. Like we could put in a curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Is that a problem, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m.? Is that where we're having problems? No, I can tell you where the problems are. There's some of those stores where a lot of people are gathering in big chunks. And so that's what we're looking at, is some of those things that we might consider.
Can you tell us approximately the hour times that you're seeing the people in large amounts in the stores?
Well, one of the challenges that has happened is the stores have reduced their hours, okay? One of our largest grocers in the city went from being 24 hours to 8 to 8. So what that does is it pushes more people into the store because now they only have 12 hours versus 24 hours. And so we have more people going at a limited amount of time. So those stores, I could ask them to be creative, say, go back to 24 hours and provide incentives for people to shop from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. Maybe some special deals, which will get people to limit the times when they're in the stores instead of everybody there from 8 to 8. So it's definitely, it's definitely the 8 to 8 is crunch time when we're seeing a lot of people at stores when I wish they weren't. All right, well, thank you for being here again today. Stay tuned. There's a lot of pieces that are moving rapidly right now. I'll just leave with that last comment, including the governor's giving an update at 1 o'clock, and he's going to share some data modeling that will again further drive what we're doing in Sioux Falls and specifically Lincoln and Minnehaha counties. So thank you.